France had more tanks, guns and men than Germany in 1940. It is always assumed that during the Second World War the Germans bludgeoned their way to victory with a highly modern and mechanized army and air force that was superior to anything the Allies could muster in May 1940. The reality was very different. On the 10th of May 1940, when the Germans attacked, only 16 of their 135 divisions were mechanized, that is, equipped with motorized transport. The rest depended on horses and cart or feet. France alone had 117 divisions. France also had more guns. Germany had 7,378 artillery pieces and France 10,700. It didn't stop there. The Germans could muster 2,439 tanks while the French had 3,254, most of which were bigger, better armed and armored than the German panzers. 2. The priority for manpower in the UK is surprising. Britain had decided before the war began that it would make air and naval power the focus of its fighting capability, and it was only after the fall of France that British powers realised that the army would have to grow substantially too. However, right up until the spring of 1944, the priority for manpower in the UK was not the Navy, RAF, Army, or even the Merchant Navy, but the Ministry of Aircraft Production. In the war, Britain alone built 132,500 aircraft, a staggering achievement, especially when considering that Fighter Command in the Battle of Britain never had more than 750 fighters. 3. Allied merchant shipping losses were just 1%. Allied shipping losses in the Second World War in the North Atlantic, Arctic and home waters were just 1.48%. Overall, there were 323,090 individual sailings, of which 4,786 were sunk. Of these, 2,562 were British, but on average, there were around 2,000 British ships sailing somewhere around the world on any given day. Convoys, for the most part, were pretty safe, even though a few suffered terribly. Independent sailings and stragglers from convoys suffered the worst, but faster independent sailings were needed to cut down on unloading time and congestion, which was the drawback of the convoy system. 4. Britain had the least rationing in Europe. France and Britain began the war without rationing, and, while it was modestly introduced in Britain in January 1940, France had still resisted by the time they were defeated in June 1940. Germany, on the other hand, introduced rationing before the war and struggled to feed its armed forces and the wider population from start to finish. The country's demand for food from occupied territories led to a lot of hunger for a lot of people, including the urban French. British people never had to go hungry, and, although a number of foods were rationed, there were lots that were not. Certainly, by 1945, Britain had it very easy compared with the rest of Europe. 5. The Japanese had kamikaze rockets. It was not only the Germans who put rocket-powered aircraft into the air in the Second World War. After their initial victories, the Japanese struggled to pace with US and British technology, but they did develop the Oka, or Cherry Blossom, a rocket-powered human-guided anti-shipping missile, which was used at the end of the war as a kamikaze weapon. It had to be carried by a mother plane to get within range, then once released would glide towards the target, usually a ship, before the pilot would fire the rockets and hurtle in at up to 600 miles per hour. Oka pilots were called Jirabutai-Thunder Gods- but only managed to sink 3 Allied ships. It was a lot of effort and sacrifice for not very much.